Hello there, welcome to Visual Aid 5001a. So this is going to be following Work Instruction 5001a, the ReportRighter General Instructions. We're just going to kind of go over some important things to know when using ReportRighter so that you can get started right away making incredible document templates. So before we can get started making our document templates, we have to load ReportRighter into our Microsoft Office applications. And you only have to do this the first time, or depending on sometimes when you switch computers or accounts, you're going to have to reload ReportRighter if it's not in the Home tab. So I already have done this and it already exists up here, but if for whatever reason ReportRighter is not in your Home tab, these are the steps to get it there. You're going to go ahead and click Insert, then the My Add-ins button, go to Admin Managed, and ReportRighter should be right here. If it's not, go ahead and click Refresh and then it should show up. So there's two ways to add it. You can either go down here and click Add after you've selected it, or you can just double click it. And there you go. It'll give you this awesome little ribbon that tells you get started with ReportRighter, and all of your buttons should be loaded. This should also load it into Excel. If it does not for some reason, follow the same exact steps in Excel. So let's get started making our first document template. So the first thing to note is when you're making a document template, you're going to make the entire structure, the skeleton, before you do anything with ReportRighter. ReportRighter is the last thing that you do. And this is really, really great because if your organization already has document templates, you can use those. So you don't have to start from scratch just because you want to use ReportRighter. So that is just incredible. And now I'm going to show you, once you have a document template like this one, this visual aid addendum here, this I created to show some examples of some really great features here. So we'll jump right in at section 5, creating import locations. So this first one, 5.1, we're just going to do a very, very basic cell import example. So we have example text, and this string here between these brackets, that's the portion that's going to be replaced. So the way that we convert this into a cell import is we are going to highlight this or select it, and we want to make sure that we get both sides of the bracket. And that's very, very important because we want this to be a very unique string. You know, coming up with a standard way of not just identifying them, but making it so that they're going to be unique no matter what is key to having great reports. So what we do is once we highlight the entire section that we want to replace, we're going to hit this Insert Cell Import button, and we will give this a little bit of time here. For you, it's going to work very fast, but since I'm recording, that takes quite a bit of my computer's memory, and it has a little bit of a tough time here. But as you can see, we now have replaced this with this great little cell import. And so what ends up happening is that now I can see that it's there. But a great way to identify where these are going to be is to like bold them, italicize them, underline them, because any of the text inside of this import here will be replaced, and it won't keep. It will just be plain formatted, so it'll be black. It'll be whatever your default font. It won't keep this bolding, which is really nice because as I'm coming through here, if this wasn't bolded, it would be hard to see where I want to create those imports. So bolding is great. And then, like I said, remember to keep it unique. And we'll go into that here in 5.2, where I'm going to show you how ReportRighter replaces all instances of this highlighted text throughout the document. So what ends up happening here is if I highlight this, right, when I hit Insert Cell Import, it's going to search the entire document, well, the body. So the headers are a separate piece of the document. You're going to have to do that different. So like if you have date in the header, that's going to have to be its own cell, just because of the way that Microsoft Word documents are created. But it's going to search the entire body for this text. And we see it down here twice. So it's going to take that and it's going to replace each of these instances with one of these cell imports. So let's try it out. Give it a little time. It's a little slow because of the recording right now. There we go. All right, as you can see, these have all been replaced. Incredible. That is what we love to see. And so right now I'm just going to show you how to make all of these imports, and then we'll actually deal with importing the data in a second. So now we're going to come down and we're going to do a shape. So what's great about these shapes is that It's the same as the cells. We just hit this insert shape import. And so I use curly braces. This doesn't have to be unique because the shape does not search for all other instances of that, simply because generally you're only going to be importing a shape once. But if I wanted to, import this ENG Suite logo multiple times, I could put that same text and it's going to replace each instance of that, but I would have to highlight each of those instances of the text just to be aware of. But what's really cool about replacing these shapes is that we get this handy dandy little placeholder image. And what's cool about this placeholder image is that this actually helps us format the final image. So whatever size this is the size that our shape is going to be inserted as. So something to note is that default, all pictures, all images are, their aspect ratio is locked. And so when your shapes come in, their aspect ratio will be locked and they will be formatted based on the width. The reason we use the width is because generally you're confined on the width of your page, because the width of a report, it's generally in portrait mode, so that's an 8.5 inches minus like an inch to an inch and a half on either side, which really cuts down the amount of usable space. So when you are importing these, it's going to hit this exact width and then the aspect ratio is going to be locked. But if you don't want to lock the aspect ratio, let's say you want it to be this exact size, the exact height, the exact width, you can double click this to go into the picture formatting settings and click on this little button here in the size. And then that'll open up your layout. And some cool things is that you can actually modify the size here to be exact. So that's just kind of fun stuff that maybe you don't know about what you can do with pictures in Word. But this is really, really where you're going here. And lock aspect ratio. So whatever this is what your image that's being imported will be. So if this is checked, then the image that's being imported will be locked. So it'll only be sized on the width, and it will keep whatever aspect ratio it has. But if it's unchecked, then it's going to match the height and the width. I'm just going to leave it locked right now because otherwise then my logo will be distorted. So we'll do that, and I don't want it too big. There we go. And here, I'll actually make it big enough there. Okay, so now in 5.4, we're going to take a look at my favorite feature of ReportRighter, and that is that it can automatically size a table based on the amount of data it finds in Excel. So what it does is ReportRighter will say, you'll tell it, okay, column 1 is going to be found at this cell, column 2, the first data is in this cell, column 3, the first data is in this cell. And then depending on which way your data repeats, ReportRighter is going to go through and see how far that data extends contiguously. And then it's going to automatically size this table to be the same exact size as your data in Excel and import everything right into the table. So what does that mean? Let's go over here to Excel and take a look. So in here we have two different tables. We have table 1 and table 2, which we also have in our Word. And they're both the same table because I want to show you something really cool, but that comes when we import the data. So our table it's about these three characters, right? They have a name, favorite colored shirt, and hair color. And we can think of each row as being an individual person with these characteristics, right? So our data in table 1 is repeating vertically. That means each person, each character is stacked vertically on top of each other, right? So what it's going to do is we'll start here because we didn't put our headers in the table. Generally, it's a good idea to put your headers in the table in Word and then just repeat through the data. That's not how I did it here because I wanted to have a little bit more data to show you. And it's going to say, so we'll start in O2, and it's going to say, okay, we go down, O3 still have data, O4 still have data, O5, okay. We still have data, and O6, no data. Okay, it stops. We now know that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So we have 4 rows in our table, so it's going to make sure that the table has 4 rows. And then what it's going to do is it's going to jump over to P and it's going to say, okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's going to take all of this and it's going to fill out the table with this data. Okay? Now Ben down here, even though he's sample 4, he's disconnected. So he is not going to join them in Word. Now if there were a person in here, he would join them in Word because it's all about contiguous data. Now over here in table 2, it's the same exact data, but now it's repeating horizontally. So each of our individual new samples or people, they're stacked together horizontally, going left to right. So what it's going to do is it's going to say, okay, so in our name column, we have John, Charlie, Patrick. And then it's going to have favorite color shirt, blue, yellow, black, none. And what's interesting about as we're moving horizontally, it's actually going to transpose our data to look exactly like this. So it's going to go horizontally. The reason is that, again, you're likely going to be constricted horizontally. So if you have 100 pieces of data, you really don't want 100 columns in your table. You'd rather have it in 100 rows, because your document can go as long vertically as you want. You can just keep adding more pages, but it's really hard to stretch it out lengthwise. So these two tables, we'll fill them out here. We'll insert our cell locations, and then we're going to start importing some data. So I'm just going to fast forward here because it's taking a little bit of time. Okay, great. So now we have all of our inserts, our cell imports created, and our shape import created. So we're just going to save this document. And now we're going to go into import data from Excel. And in here, we'll just got to let it load. It takes a little bit because my computer's a little slow right now. But this is what your ReportRighter task pane looks like. So for now, we're going to go through, and in our sheet, let's say our ReportRighter cell import example is going to pull from sheet 1, cell A2. And then our important data, it pulls from the important data page. And let's take a look. So it's in important data page, and it is in L7. Great. So then we type in L7. And something interesting to note is that it's not case sensitive. It will uppercase anything you type in here so that it will match Excel, but it's always good to be as specific as possible. So we'll always uppercase it. Just that way you don't run into any errors like mixing up lowercase l with an I. Now let's go down into our table. And our table, let's take a look at what cells they pull from. And they are on sheet 1, and the data starts in O2, P2, Q2 for table 1. So each column is, sheet 1, and I'm going to copy that because they're all on sheet 1, and it's O2, P2, and Q2. Okay, cool. Now this is where you put in the repeat. So if you don't touch this, or if you change it to does not repeat, it's only going to import these locations, even if there is contiguous data. So it doesn't always have to automatically size your tables, and that's really nice for things in tables that you don't want to repeat, right? So we will go here and we will say that our data is going to repeat vertically, right? Because that's what we said for this one. And then we'll go in here, and we know that it's sheet 1, sheet 1, sheet 1. And I actually have done this before. So it's actually S2, S3, and S4. And this time the data is going to repeat horizontally. So we'll save that again. So now all of these settings are saved. If I close out to it, all of this is going to be populated. But let's say we control this or put this in another location where other people can access it. And we don't want them messing with this because it's all set up, it all works, we've already validated it. We want to lock these settings. So we'll lock it. We'll click the lock button, and now we can enter a password. So I'm going to enter QWERTY. Something to note is that it is case sensitive, so I have to type it all lowercase again, and then hit enter. And now it's locked. Awesome. To unlock it, I would just enter that same password. So this is not meant to be super secure. It's really just meant to be a safeguard against anybody accidentally modifying your data. So it works exactly the same way that your protecting workbooks would work. So I can enter and unlock it, and now I can enter in a totally new password. I can enter RR, right? And that will still work. So it's just like protecting a workbook, really just a safeguard. All right, so now we want to import this data. We'll save this, and we'll go back in here, and we have to compile our workbook. So we'll click to export, and once this loads, it'll give us a little message that lets us know it's finished. Great. So your workbook has been successfully prepared to import into Word. Awesome. Don't touch anything yet. Make sure we save. So now our workbook is ready. We can just close out of that. And then we're going to choose the file, and we have to navigate to the location of that workbook we just closed, and I've got mine right here. So I'll click that, and now that it's loaded, I hit import data. And now as you see, it is importing the data. Yours will be a little faster. Again, mine's slow because I'm kind of running low on memory here. All right, great. So I fast forwarded there so that we could get through this a little quicker. And if you notice, just like I said, it filled in all of that data with only having to put in one row. Awesome. And it did the same for this one. They look exactly the same, even though the data is presented differently in Excel. And that is incredibly cool. So we go up here and we notice that our important data has been filled out every time. And then we come here and we see that this didn't change, but it was highlighted. That's because ReportRighter has this really neat ability to detect whether or not data has been imported. And if it doesn't detect any data in Excel, it doesn't replace it. It highlights it so that I can easily see right there that it wasn't imported. And we'll go here, and we can actually scroll through these import cells by hitting Move to Next Import. Now, it's a little slow, so it's kind of hard to show you here, but it's scrolling through. Our image didn't load, and that's because we actually forgot to fill out the settings. So in here, I would just type in the shape name. And in order to find that, I'll open my workbook back up. Sorry about the speed on everything today. I'm not going to go through writing the report again because I want to make sure that you guys have time to get to work. But if you click on an image, its shape name is right there. And this shape name is going to be what you use here in the ENG Suite shape imports, right? So it would be ENG Suite, but I can also rename this. So if I click on my image and go up here, I can just name it whatever I want. And then now we've named it, right? So make sure that you hit enter after you type it in. And now it's renamed. Every time, ENG Suite. And that's all I've got for you in this short little video, kind of going over some of the important features of ReportRighter. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us at rr.help@engsuite.org. We'd love to see whatever it is we can do to help you become more efficient in your report writing process. So thank you so much. Have a great day, and please do something awesome.